Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's special call meeting. Ms. Bonner, I think we're in place. I'd like to call this meeting to order, please.
Yes, sir. I will start, sir, at the point of our invocation today. Will be delivered by Reverend Anthony Booker, pastor of the Broadway Baptist Church, after which we would like to ask Chief Antonio Burton if he would please lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand?
May we bow. Gracious Father, we thank you, Lord, first for this day for which you've made, God, and we are indeed grateful. Your word declared that you are a great God and you're great to be praised. So, Father, in all things we lift your name. We thank you, Father, for this privilege, God, to come and to share. We thank you for the gifts of service that you blessed us, God, to have, that humankind, God, may be uplifted. I pray now, Master, now, by your power that you move in this place in a special way. We pray, God, for the reasonness of heart and mind, Lord God, that we might come and share and attend to your kingdom business. I pray, God, you may bless these, God, who sit, Lord God, you place in the place of leadership. And I pray, God, you may give them the heart of service, Lord God, that keep in heart and mind, God, the least, the less, and the lost, Lord God, that we might uplift them all. I pray, Father, may bless our mayor, give him what he needs, God, to lead this city. And God, all of us, God, that God, citizens across the city of Augusta, Lord, give us strength, Lord God, to pick up our end of the cart. And God, and run on as our ancestors said and see what the end is going to be. Bless us now, Father, in this place now. It is in your Son, Jesus the Christ, we do pray, and we shout together, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You ready, sir? Okay. Yes, our first item on the agenda, only item, is to approve Gold Cross contract with the $1.95 million subsidy requested by Commissioner Brandon Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we get started, I just want to remind the members of the audience, my colleagues on the commission, we all understand that this is a very contentious issue for our community. With that said, I think it's in our best interest, and we owe it to ourselves to be respectful of one another, to be respectful of these chambers. Everyone's going to be given the opportunity to speak, but we're not going to speak over anyone else, and that is not going to be allowed. So be respectful. Let's be great stewards of this community, and let's proceed. The very first person I see in the queue is Commissioner from the 5th, Bobby Williams.
Yes, sir. My question today is, which contract are we dealing with? Some time ago, the Augusta Commission asked our administrator and our attorney to negotiate a contract with no Gold Cross. They did that. Well, last week, Mr. Garrett came in with a contract from Gold Cross, and that's the one that we voted on. Well, I'm thinking, and we can ask the attorney, even before that contract from Gold Cross can be entered into whatever to be voted on, we have to vote it in and vote the other one out. So my question today is, which contract are we going to be voting on? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before I get clarification, Attorney Brown, can you come up for a second, please?
Mr. Mayor. Mayor.
Commissioner from the field.
Okay. I think yeah.
All right, Commissioner from the field.
All right. Is Ms. Sams in the room? Jerry Sams? She deals with procurement and contracts and what have you. I'd like to see what what she has to say on this because I just don't think that contract that Mr. Garrett came in is a legal contract.
Certainly. Ms. Sams, do you mind approaching, please?
Good afternoon.
Ms. Sams.
Yes, sir.
The question from the Commissioner from the fifth regarding the contract, as it being a legal or not legal contract, what is your opinion regarding this matter?
My opinion as regarding this matter.
Chair recognizes counsel.
Yes, I will ask that the mayor reconsider the question. I do not believe Ms. Sams should be asked whether a contract is legal or not, as she is not authorized to practice law to say whether it's legal or not. She may have some opinions on it, but we should not ask her for a legal opinion.
Well, let's just ask her for an opinion. I just want to ask her for an opinion. You can't stop her from talking. I asked her.
Attorney Brown, is that permissible? Ms. Sams, proceed.
My opinion as the procurement director for Augusta, Georgia, and let me give you a little bit of historical data. The commission, the full commission, appointed a committee to come up with a proposed contract as it relates to Gold Cross. That committee submitted that contract, proposed contract, to the commission. As of this day, and I've gone through many a minutes, and I was very careful, I could not find where the commission appointed a representative to make contact with Gold Cross for negotiation. Now, the contract that was proposed coming out of the official committee appointed by the commission put a contract forward, and then another contract which was delivered, I cannot say negotiated by, came forward last week. And we were like on pause because we had not seen or reviewed, or nobody said that there were other issues to be discussed. So I guess for me, my opinion as procurement director, unless the commission authorized the representative to negotiate, then your second contract would be questionable.
Thank you for that
Thank you.
opinion.
And I have one more question, sir. Not of Ms. Sands, but I'd like for the fire chief to come forward. Yes, sir, Mr. Fire Chief. I'm trying to dispel all this scare tactic about if Gold Cross walks away, what will happen. Tell us what will happen if Gold Cross walks away. What is the ambulance service of Georgia going to do? What's the process?
Well, good day, Mr. Mayor and Commission. My understanding, and I certainly lean to counsel, of the state rules and regs as it pertains to the EMS zone falls directly within the state office of EMS. The State Office of EMS, in my understanding, has oversight as it relates to the actual zone. And so I'm careful not to speak for that office in terms of any changes or any different direction that the city would go in. I think oversight or administration comes from that office.
Thank you, Chief.
And Chief, how many days will Gold Cross have to serve if they quote unquote walk away? Will they have to do 120 days, 6 months? What will they have to do?
Again, Commissioner, I have reviewed Code Section 511-9-2. And once again, with the state office being oversight, I think that they will be best or more equipped to answer that question. It doesn't, in the code section, speak directly.
Okay, but they would have to serve, but they would have to serve a number of days, correct, before they could just walk away.
Once again, the Code Section 511-9-2 doesn't directly speak to a set amount of time.
I got you.
It doesn't spell it out. So the State Office of EMS would be our best resource.
Okay, but they would have to serve a period of time before they could just walk away, correct?
Again, I think the state office would probably be best to answer that question because it's not exactly spelled out in the rules and regulations.
Okay, but they would have to serve a period of time, correct?
Commissioner, you keep rephrasing.
Hang on a second, sir. Let me go to Attorney Brown, please. Attorney Brown, what's your take on what happens if they walk away?
Commissioner Williams, the state regs referred to by Chief Burton provides that the department, which is the Department of Public Health, would appoint a temporary zone provider, and that temporary designation, and I quote, the temporary designation shall be in place until the regional ambulance zoning plan is modified. The modification of the zoning plan means to designate another provider. Mm-hmm. If Gold Cross walks away, the health department would provide for the ambulance service on a temporary basis, and the length of time that they can serve is indefinite until another provider is called forth.
Okay, thank you. And my point is we will have a provider regardless of whether they walk away or not. But, Mr. Mayor, I need a determination on the contract. We should be concentrating on the contract that was negotiated by Attorney Brown and our administrator rather than something that was brought in by Mr. Garrett. And just to say this, and you might have to take a look at it or what have you, I'm not talking to you. You might have to take a look at it, but my understanding is by law, if somebody negotiates a contract, a commissioner negotiates a contract, he cannot vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner from the 5th. Before we proceed on, I'm going to ask Stephen Vincent from Gold Cross to come up for just a second, please.
But, sir, we do need to make a determination as to what contract that we're going to be voting on. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. For the record, would you state your name and address, please?
Stephen Vincent, 221 Seton Circle.
Mr. Vincent, the question has been raised regarding your level of service, regarding if you should decide to surrender the zone. What are your requirements as you see it?
There are no requirements. All we have to do is call the state and surrender the zone. As the attorney said, as the chief said, there's no stated rules or regulations, regardless of what anyone else says, that requires any kind of time frame. I have spoke to the director of the State Office of EMS, Kelly Joyner, yesterday after hearing some contradictory information, and she verified exactly what I just said. As far as the contract, could I speak real quick on that? What version?
Certainly.
The contract I'm really confused of why we keep hearing there's two different contracts. The contract that Mr. Garrett or Commissioner Garrett proposed is Augusta's contract. As Administrator Dowse brought forth back in September, there were still a few items that were not agreed upon. And so the contract that Commissioner Garrett presented is Augusta's contract with Gold Cross's request, which Administrator Dowse put those in a comparison sheet for each commissioner last week. Those are the only changes that she outlined for everyone, but it is Augusta's contract. There's no different. That's why she did the comparison chart to show you that there's only a few differences. There is no new contract that was drafted. Gold Cross did not draft that contract. That is the contract drafted by Augusta.
Thank you. Madam Administrator, can you confirm that, please?
That is accurate. I would like to further clarify that the contract that the administrator presented is no longer the administrator's contract if there are changes that have been made to it. So what Mr. Vincent has just stated is the fact that Gold Cross made changes to the administrator's contract, in which I did provide the commission the comparison document, which means it is no longer the administrator's contract.
Correct.
So it is two separate contracts, the administrator's contract and Gold Cross's contract.
Thank
Attorney
you.
Brown, can you weigh in and let us know if we can proceed, please, based on, do we need to vote on the administrator's contract, seeing as how we now have two contracts? Can you provide guidance, please?
As previously stated, the administrator and I were tasked to assemble a team and negotiate with Gold Cross. There was a negotiation. The negotiation resulted in the contract that the administrator presented. It is presently in your book. It is the second proposed contract, and at the top of your book, it has Administration 2. That is the contract that you ordered us to bring back. The other contract, which was first seen by staff, to everyone that I've spoken with on staff, including the administrator, was first seen when presented on the commission agenda last time by Commissioner Garrett, who, which the administrator now says is properly labeled the Gold Cross contract because it's not what staff did. The commission will need to decide, was the order from the commission to the staff to negotiate a contract and bring it back to the commission if the commission is going to continue to follow its line of authority toward the staff, or whether or not the commission is going to allow, for the first time to my knowledge, to have a vendor present a contract for its consideration. That is not customary for procurement. This is a procurement, even though Gold Cross was the only group, since they're the zone provider, they were the only group that it could be procured from. But Augusta never procures something from a vendor and allows a vendor to write or to present the contract to Augusta. It is usually the procurement staff that presents the contract to Augusta, the commission approves it, and finish up any minor negotiations with the vendor, and the contract is signed.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Attorney Brown. I'm going to stay in the queue, please. And next, I want to recognize Commissioner from the 8th, Commissioner Garrett.
Thank you, Mayor. So you said that the first time you saw this contract was prior to last meeting. Did I not try to also add this line item to our last committee meeting, and Commissioner Bobby Williams prevented it from being added to the committee, but the contract was attached to it? So for you to say that no one from any staff saw that, that is a false statement.
No, sir, that is not a false statement. What I said was the first time staff saw this contract is when you presented it, not in the committee meeting, is when you presented it and it was on the agenda.
So with that being said, if no one saw it, how was the comparison sheet that was provided prior to the commission meeting able to be presented?
I said that no one saw it prior to being on the agenda. Once it was placed on the agenda, the administrator did the comparison and delivered that to the commission the morning of the meeting, which was Tuesday. Some commissioners say they did not see the comparison.
So can we vote on the administrator's contract today?
Yes, sir, you can vote on the administrator's contract. You can vote to alter that contract. You can vote to redo the contract. You may vote on the contract as you see fit. The only question really is the protocol, since this is a procurement, the protocol that the presentation and the authority of the commission was to consider the contract by the staff. The changes can be made.
That was the same contract that Ben Hassan put on the agenda
Commissioner Garrett, let him finish, please.
back in.
Let him finish,
Okay,
Commissioner.
go ahead, Attorney.
No, I was finished. I mean, it's fine.
All right. Well,
Let me say this. Some of this is semantics, but the real question of it is for the commission to become centered on the contract that it is going to consider. Will the commission follow up its own directive that the staff would bring back a contract and then it will be considered by the committee? Once that is decided, the commission may go in any direction it chooses, provided that it has the adequate number of votes to get it passed.
and can I ask another question to the attorney or to the administrator? I know you've heard this question before, but I want this on the record. Has any contract ever been presented to the commission without all of the terms, including the subsidy or contract value, for the commission to vote on? When does that ever happen, except for when it comes to Gold Cross?
The commission reserved and prohibited the staff from negotiating a subsidy with Gold Cross. During that negotiations, neither Gold Cross nor the staff, pursuant to that direction, we did not discuss a subsidy. We perceived that to be out of bounds. Gold Cross never said, we want this, this, or this, and the staff never said, we will only give you this. We negotiated all the other terms that were left open by the commission.
So the answer is no other contract is typically presented without the full terms.
No, sir, the honest answer is that all the terms were negotiated that was allowed by the commission. There was nothing left undone by the staff. We cannot disobey the orders of the commission. They reserved the subsidy for their decision. It would have been a violation or insubordination for the staff to plug in that number.
So how were we supposed to come to a number as a commission to submit to you?
You could ask the staff, you prohibited it, but you could discuss it among yourselves, and you could ask the staff for their recommendation. You also could ask Gold Cross what is it they want and why do they want it.
But according to our procurement director, that's not supposed to happen. You said that we're not supposed to talk to them.
No, I said that it is unprecedented that the contract being presented to the commission for passage would come from the vendor. But if you solicit a request from Gold Cross, what is the subsidy do you think is appropriate, and tell us why. Why do you deserve this? Why do you need this? Gold Cross could answer, it could consider it. Another commissioner may ask the staff, what do you think is appropriate under the circumstances and from what you understand? And then the commission will make its decision. It's really not a staff decision.
Thank you, Attorney Brown. We're going to move on. There's some other people in the queue. Commissioner from the 5th, before I come to you, I want to catch some of these folks that haven't had opportunity to speak.
And that's fine.
Commissioner from the 10th, Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me follow up on what Attorney Wayne Brown was speaking of. As far as when he was a deputy attorney under Andrew McKenzie, actually the T-Center, the parking deck, Paul Simon and them, actually that organization brought their contract to us. Augusta did not do that contract, for one. But my question to the attorney, what role does the State Board of Health have to do with Augusta, Richmond County, and Gold Cross contract at this time? Because I keep hearing about this Board of Health. What role do they play? What jurisdiction do they have? What oversight do they have for Augusta, Richmond County contract with Gold Cross?
Commissioner Guilford, I'm unaware of any role that the department, the Health Department's Board of Health would have in formulating a contract between Augusta and Gold Cross.
What, because apparently something's supposed to be happening Thursday with the State Board of Health, and I don't know why we waiting so long, because if they don't have a role in it, they don't have any say-so in what we doing up here at this point. Would you agree?
They do not have a role, or they, better yet said, they do not have veto power of a contract that Augusta wishes to enter with Gold Cross.
Okay. Just for the sake of the people that's in this room as well as people that's watching, a lot of correspondence has happened, believe it or not. A lot of correspondence has been discussed about this Gold Cross contract with Augusta, Richmond County weeks. As a matter of fact, before some of us was even sworn in. You know, we keep finding reasons not to do this contract. It's been going on, Commissioner and Alvin Mason last April, try to move it forward. And we look 10 months later, we still got the same staff in the same position with no results. Nothing's changed. But I will tell you what will change is that Gold Cross had tried to come to the table again. They keep giving up, moving the goalpost towards us while we steadily put in roadblocks for them. They actually, if everybody read the contract, you'll understand they giving up the zone where one of the commissioners doubted that, and they actually spoke verbally right here in front of this podium. They cut the contract, it was a five-year renewal. They changed it to three-year renewal. That's a savings after cutting it from $1.95 million down to $1.75, which is additional $1.2 million savings to the taxpayers. They increased their QRV, quick response vehicles, from one during peak hours. They added two more to help the citizens of Augusta, Richmond County. And so I don't know what more a company can do. We keep looking at the health board as our safety net, but if you look into CSRA, who do we have for the state health board to call on? There's nobody. So everything that they do to provide ambulance service for Augusta, Richmond County, is they're going to have to hire ambulance drivers here locally. We came to fulfill our sheriff's department, our fire department, and Gold Cross even has a challenge to maintain employees, and half their employees is minorities. All the money here that we give them stays here in Augusta, Richmond County. They do a lot of free stuff for Augusta, Richmond County. And people question, hey, no response time. They don't do this, they don't do that. Well, that's what the difference is with a contract that holds them liable. I see Mr. Johnson shaking his head no, but a contract is a heck of a lot different than an MOU. MOU is just a handshake, but this body's got to make some tough decisions, and if this here fails today, there's going to be some tougher decisions, and I'm going to lean on the people who, staff as well as the commissioners who's found a better way here in the next few weeks, few months, few years, because that's what it's going to take, a couple of years for another company to come in and know the area, hire the people, etc. So that's my take on it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Commissioner Guilford from the 10th. Commissioner Williams, I'm still going to put you on pause as I want to let recognize the commissioner from the 4th to give him his first opportunity to speak, please.
He gonna speak too long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Sams, if I could have Ms. Sams come up, please.
Certainly. Ms. Sams?
I have a question for Ms. Sams.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Sams, how long have you been in the procurement business?
About 30 years.
About 30 years. And for the city?
No.
No, I'm saying, and for the city, how long have you been?
For the city since 1999.
Okay, all right. Now, during this time frame, have you ever, on any occasion, had commissioners in a position to negotiate a contract for you?
That's a great question. And my answer to you is, when I saw or it appeared that a commissioner was going to negotiate a contract, I always warned it against it, because there are laws that says if a commissioner negotiate a contract with a vendor, then that commissioner cannot vote on that contract.
Great. And so the reason why I asked you that, thank you. The reason why I asked you that is we hear all this mumbo jumbo that's going on up here. But the fact of the matter is we've got to take responsibility ourselves, as the commission that was here, for how we got into this position that we're in. First and foremost, we should have never had a subcommittee with commissioners negotiating contracts. First and foremost, that should have never happened. Being assigned other commissioners that was on that committee, they tried to put me on. I didn't want to be on it because I knew that that was not the right thing to do. That's why I chose not to be on it. But yet instead, we still did the same thing, and we put the subcommittee together where commissioners would come in helping to negotiate a contract. Wrong move from the very beginning. So all this other talk that's going on doesn't even make sense. Now, from the legal side and our staff, a little disappointed here, because what you're saying now is not necessarily what you continue to say throughout, or you didn't interject it at the right time, especially from the legal standpoint, my opinion. So here we go. This contract that we're looking at, and Ms. Dow sent us an email. It had 4 or 5, it was a comparative analysis with 4 or 5 different ones. I can't remember exactly Ms. Dow's right now, but it was 4 or 5 differences than the original contract. So what we should be looking at this particular point, if we're going to be looking at anything legal, is that those additional items, we can either vote them up or we can vote them down. Because that is what the comparative analysis was for. We could agree or not. Now, I keep hearing about workshops and all this other foolishness. We've been talking about this for 2 years and kicking the can down the road. If you know you're not going to vote for it, I'm not doing no workshop. That's crazy. We're wasting time. We're wasting people's time. We're wasting our citizens' time. What we need to do here, we're going to make a decision or we're not. And then we're going to live with it. Will a provider come in? You heard them say a provider come in. Do you know who that provider is? No. Do we know what their service is like? No. Do we know how many ambulances they have? No. Do we know what their response times are? No. Instead of being adversarial, why don't we become partners in this venture, is all I've said from the very beginning, and have it that type of attitude, a partnership attitude, instead of coming immediately from an adversarial attitude. I'm telling you right now here today, I am not going to continue to push somebody's agenda that never wanted to go across here in the first place. I won't do it. And I hope nobody else would either. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Williams, I'm still going to hold you in the queue. That's one other commissioner that has not spoken yet, and I'm going to recognize the commissioner from the 7th, Commissioner Frantham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I totally agree with what Commissioner Mason just said. I've been on this commission 7.5 years, and frankly, whether it was department heads, whether it was commissioners, they've always wanted Gold Cross out. The number of things that have happened behind the scenes, if this vote fails today, you're going to hear all about it, and it's not going to be pretty. When you look, I keep hearing about this EMS council. Look at all the changes in the EMS council over the last 6 years, and who's the changes and who they are, and whether they support Gold Cross or against Gold Cross. This has been a plan in motion for many years, and here we are today on whether we're going to move forward with Gold Cross or not. If the vote fails today, we're going to pay just as much money, if not more, to a state-provided service. Right now, we don't know whether those ambulances, whether we're going to have to pay for them, state's going to pay for them, and it's a serious unknown. We have a company that, do I think Gold Cross can do better? Absolutely. Do I think they've never had a contract, so we can't hold them accountable? But am I fearful of what the alternative is? Absolutely. And anybody that's anti-Gold Cross because of the history of Gold Cross, you can't tell me that you just know it's going to be better if they're gone tomorrow. And frankly, I think we got 10 days to 2 weeks if this vote goes the way it seems like it's going to go today. I think that we talk about, department heads talk about, we've never had, I mean, frankly, we shouldn't be discussing them on the floor. Frankly, when we had workshops, committees, we didn't have Gold Cross at the table or let them speak at those committees because we wanted to push our agenda. We didn't want to hear them. We've done Gold Cross wrong. This city has done Gold Cross wrong, whether you want to believe it or not. For the past mayor to call them Burger King last year, that's absolutely ridiculous. So they haven't done right totally, Gold Cross. I admit that. But this city has not treated them right and never wanted a partnership. And here we are on the 1 yard line. They've came back with significant changes to a contract that started at 10 years, started at much more, came down. And, you know, today we're going to vote on it, and I feel like it's not going to pass. And it's because people want to hold the line thinking that the EMS council knows better than the government and how they think this is going to play out. We're going to get the zone. We put in the contract today that Commissioner Garrett will read that if we don't get the zone, we void this contract. So we're getting what we want, and we're getting a partnership. And I think right now, I mean, this is unprecedented times. We've never had a company attacked like the city of Augusta has attacked them. And in the coming days when this vote fails today, you're going to hear a lot about it, because I can assure you I'm going to be one of them to tell the whole story, because this has not been a pretty thing for us for the past 7.5 years I've been on here. And it starts way before I was on this commission. So I hope that we can come to an understanding and people can realize that, you know, politically people are past commissioners scaring commissioners up here. I'm going to have you an opponent. I can assure you that the community's not going to forget this vote. I can assure you that one. So whether you think your vote to not support it because you're scared somebody's going to get you an opponent, that's crazy. Because this one's going to have serious ripple effects that that the community's going to feel, and I feel sorry for us. This is going to be a sad day for Augusta. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 3rd, McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got one quick question to ask. I don't know if I should be directing this. I probably needed to direct it to Mr. Vincent, if that's okay. May I ask him a quick question?
Mr. Vincent, proceed, please.
Yes. Is there a Department of Public Health ambulance service around here?
No, the Department of Public Health does not have any type of ambulance service. Okay. I think maybe what they're referencing is there's a possibility they could put out a request for help. There's no ambulance provider in the country that's just sitting around waiting for a county to open for them to all of a sudden bring the resources down. That doesn't exist. Everyone in the whole country is short-staffed. There are ambulance services, large services, national services, worldwide services that are pulling out of counties right now for similar reasons, because the counties that they're in chose not to work with them. Usually, most of those are much smaller. But I do want to make one quick statement about the EMS Council. I keep hearing EMS Council, EMS Council. The EMS Council has no authority, just so you know, zero. So you keep saying that they're going to take something away from us. They have no authority at all. They are a recommending body that is in the statute. They have no authoritative power. They are a recommending body. This zoning committee that you're discussing, they've been doing a review of the zone based off a request from a citizen of Hepzibah over a year and a half ago. And when they did the first review, it showed that our numbers shown great improvement. And they are continuing the review, and that's what it is. There's no investigation. There's some agendas on that council of people that have been against Gold Cross for many years. And so at the very end of a meeting, they're like, let's just open records requests and see if there's any complaints. Well, you could do that on any county in the entire state of Georgia. Over the last 17 years, Gold Cross has touched over 850 lives in this area that we've responded to calls for, and transported over 650,000 patients to local hospitals. You're going to have some complaints, and I'm okay with that, because we strive to provide great service on every call. But just like if you go to Amazon or eBay, you know, you pretty much trust those people with a 99.9% success rate, and that's what we have. you're always going to have that small number that, you wish you could have done better on. But it's going back to the CMS Council, they're a recommending body. They can make a recommendation. This Thursday meeting that you're referencing is a committee that can make a recommendation to a full council that happens later down the road, who then, depending on that vote, they can make a recommendation to the state, and then the state from there can make their final decision, which we've gone down this road numerous times over the last 10 years. And the local body has recommended before to open zoning and bring in a potential new provider, and the state said no. So this local council, like I said, is a recommending body, and the last time this happened, the state did not take their recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent.
Thank you so much.
Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the first, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to take an opportunity to sort of clear up some things, and I don't know if it's going to be helpful, but I'm going to try at least. I don't recall anyone up here saying that we didn't want Gold Cross as our provider. I don't remember anybody coming out of our mouth saying that. Certainly, I haven't said that. Every time I've gotten recognized on the floor, I've always spoke about how Gold Cross has been helpful to the community. I've always spoke about how they've been helpful to me. I remember one time when I had a heart episode, I have heart disease. Gold Cross came and got me, took me to MCG, well, AU, we were good. So this whole notion that we're doing this because of past commissioners, or we're doing this because we don't want Gold Cross, it's just rhetoric. It's a lot of rhetoric. There's a lot of rhetoric up here that we're talking about. Just like when Mr. Guilford decided to call my name out, I didn't say anything to him. But he said that we're not talking about response times because an MOU can't be enforceable. Well, let me share some with you. With my organization, my real job, right? If we have an MOU on the table, right? You do this, we give you this, that is enforceable. Now, I'm not saying that we should keep Gold Cross on an MOU because I do support a contract. But even if we're talking about MOUs and so forth and so on, let's stick to the facts here, right? I'll tell you where I am. I've told every commissioner up here what I will vote for. I've told every commissioner up here why I will vote for it. But at the end of the day, when the contract came before the committee cycle, number one, it didn't come through the proper committee. That's why Mr. Williams opposed it, because it didn't come through the proper committee. That's where conversations are held. That's where things are fleshed out during the committee cycle. When you have disagreements on an item, you talk about them throughout the committee cycle so that we can get something done on the floor. We don't have to go to a workshop if you just let the committee cycle play itself out. There are items in those recommendations that we are willing to talk about. I can speak for myself. Let me speak for myself. There are things on that recommended chart that I absolutely think we can talk through. But as folks in this gallery and online are seeing, there is no will to have a conversation. When we're sitting here asking for 1.9 or 1.7 or whatever, and again, I am not opposed to supporting Gold Cross, but 1.9 or 1.5, where does the number come from? You would be shocked to know that we have asked for financial records to show where the need is. When the business community came before this city and asked for support during the COVID-19 pandemic for $7,500, they were asked for their birthright and a bowl of soup. Why are we holding a major corporation to the same standard that we were holding small businesses, many of which shut down during the pandemic? That's all I've been asking for. That's all I've been asking for. But yet and still, as you see, we're not interested in having an adult conversation about what we can give, what we can take, what we can live with, how is it going to be funded, what will the budget look like afterwards, where's the transparency? We always talk about transparency and accountability, but only when it matters to somebody else or when it doesn't matter to somebody else. And quite frankly, I'm tired of it. I was told I would be a one-term commissioner if I didn't support this. So the point that I'm making is this. While we're sitting up here talking to each other and going back and forth, there's somebody waiting to get to the hospital via ambulance. And when we're done, somebody is still going to be needing to get to the hospital via ambulance. And although it's not necessarily our job to get into the ambulance business or our job to decide zones or our job to decide who the provider is going to be, we have a responsibility to negotiate, number one, within ourselves and let our staff do its job. All of the rhetoric that, the news is putting out and commissioners are putting out, talking about airing dirty laundry, is this the Jenny Jones show? So come on now, let's get it together. At the end of the day, we have a contract that was shown to us 2.5 hours before a vote. Now, I can admit that I am not that smart to look at a contract 2.5 hours before a vote and make a sound decision. And we also have a contract that administration proposed that we have not even had a conversation about. So all I'm proposing to this body, we don't have to go into recess, we don't have to huddle, we don't have to go out into the gap. We can literally give ourselves the time to look at the contract that staff proposed. It's not perfect. It's not perfect by the long shot. We can look at that contract. We can ask Gold Cross what they need, because I'm absolutely sure that there is a need. And we can look at what this city can give, because I'm sure the city can give something. We can come to the table, we can vote on a contract, we can be on to the next item of business, because there's still homeless people on the street, there's still a need for housing, roads still need to be paved, trees still need to be cut, sewers still need to be improved, but we're sitting here fussing about what a past commissioner wanted or what past commissioners wanted. Those commissioners are not here today. The old mayor is not here today.
That's right.
They're not here.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, y'all, I think we can do much better, because while we're sitting here talking about the policies that we know, the folks out here in this gather looking at us like we're fools because we don't want to have a conversation. And quite frankly, I did not run for office for this. I didn't run for office to get intimidated. I didn't run for office to get bullied. And I didn't run for office to be jerked around up here. So at the end of the day, let's have a conversation. That's what our constituents put us in office to do. And if you don't want to have a conversation, go back to your districts and tell them that you didn't want to talk. But you have commissioners coming out of their mouth on public record saying, we're willing to have a conversation.
Commissioner Johnson.
We're willing to have a conversation. I don't think my time has expired according to the rules of procedures. I still have time. And I'm done, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
But what I'm saying is, let's have a conversation.
Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. You're welcome. Before we move in the queue, we have through personal privilege, we have a couple of folks that want to speak. Both are former commissioners, and I'm gonna call up the first to come up, sir. Commissioner Todd, former Commissioner Todd. Sir, will you state your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
Yes. My name is Moses Todd. I live at 2747 Deansbridge Road, Augusta, Georgia. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, I'm not one that come down here before you guys and, to make you look good or make you look bad. However you look is where you're going to look as far as I go. But I do email you, phone call you when I can, and I've sent out several emails in the last few weeks in reference to this issue. I think Gold Cross is a good corporation, a good company, and I don't have anything personal against Gold Cross. I don't have anything personal against anyone. I do represent the taxpayers in the best of my ability of this political subdivision. And I think that regardless of who the service provider is, that they want to get paid, and they want to get paid fairly. The taxpayers want fairness too. The users of the ambulance service provider want a certain level of service. And I know there's some challenges. I've indicated some of them in the email that I've sent out to the commission and the mayor. On the wall is one of the challenges. That's the ambulance that's waiting down at university or, AU or doctors that's trying to get a patient into the emergency room. I think that's the issue that, as I stated in my comments to you in the email, that we need to have the Augusta lobbyists working with Dr. Toomey in Atlanta to help out with that issue. That's not Gold Cross's necessarily blame altogether. But what Gold Cross could do is put some additional ambulances out there. And I know there's a cost there. I made a recommendation that we give Gold Cross a 70% increase. That would put you at approximately 1.2, 1.3, not 1.7 or 1.9. I think if you're going to give them 1.7 or 1.9, then we need to see receipts. We talked about receipts from the old mayor's office, the former mayor's office. We need to see receipts. That's all the taxpayers and the community want, if we're going to give them additional funds. If we're going to give them additional funds, we want to see improvement in the service level. We've had commissioners to mention that if we don't do this deal, if we don't throw money at it, that we're going to have folks to die out there in the community. Well, we have folks dying out in the community now. So to throw money at it, I don't think it's right. I think the money that we throw at it should be justified with receipts. And I understand that South Richmond, we have a certain poverty level. I get that. But there's also many individuals live in South Richmond County that use ambulance service that have VA 100%, have white card, Savannah Riverside. I don't think that we should be in the business of paying anybody's uncollectibles just because they could not collect them. We run into this situation with indigent care when I was on the board. We were paying an entity, I won't name it, $8 million a year. When we got through looking at it and dealing with it, we was able to cut them $4 million a year.
You have 1 minute, sir.
Yes. So I'll close this by saying I have nothing personal with Gold Cross or any service provider. I have nothing personal with any commissioner on decision that they make. But I do have something personal when it comes to representing the taxpayers and the users of the ambulance services in Augusta, Richmond County. And I think it's unfair to those individuals that use this service to have no shows or 2 hours to wait on ambulance service. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, former Commissioner Mott. Thank you so much, sir. Chair now recognizes former Commissioner Dennis Williams from the second. Commissioner, for the record, please state your name and address, please.
Dennis Williams, 2590 Richmond Hill Road, 30906.
Thank you, sir. You have 5 minutes.
I'll be quick. One of my concerns for rising this afternoon is to ensure or to see if there's been an improvement in the response time to emergency vehicles to different sites. Now, I bring this up because I have seen plenty myself where the ambulance is taking at least 30 to 45 minutes to arrive on scene, and in some cases, not even arriving. So my concern is that, if we're going to use taxpayers' money to provide a subsidy, we need to ensure that the service is there for our patients. I personally have nothing wrong with Gold Cross. They picked me up one time when I had a problem and took me to the hospital. That's fine, but we need to make sure that our response times are beneficial to the public as a whole. I also want to make sure that the commission ensures that the vendor provide us with the data that we discussed in many of the conversations, that this data will be a permanent part and a fixture of the record, meaning how many patients in different ways like that, and going to the individual invoicing process instead of giving the subsidy as a whole. It will be paid out in increments once a quarter or whatever way the group decides on. And we want to ensure that the provider is providing the service that we need in our community. It's a good provider, like I've said. The only problem that I see, and I've had a lot of complaints from people, is about the response time. So if we can improve the response time, not just adding on 2 or 3 more vehicles during peak time, but providing the service, getting to the site early instead of later. Thank you very much and a pleasant afternoon.
Thank you, Commissioner. The chair recognizes one last individual, former Commissioner John Clark.
I wasn't prepared to say anything, but John Clark, 3308 Sandpiper Lane, Augusta, Georgia, District 7.
Mr. Clark, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. My commissioner is Sean Franham. And Sean has put out some figures that I think every citizen of Augusta should look at those figures and see exactly what they state. Your eyes would be open. Commissioner Guilfoyle made a statement a while ago about what it would cost to go into the ambulance business. It would be phenomenal. Those figures are going to be forthcoming pretty shortly. I remember a time when under Sammy Sias, Chris James, and a couple other people, when Chris James was chairman of the EMS committee, they had an impromptu called meeting that they thought they were going to pull the zone and that the fire department under Chris James would get the zone. They were shocked when Commissioner Brandon Garrett and myself walked into the room. The temperature changed. They backed away from it. You say we need to have a conversation. What do you think's been going on for the last few years? It's been nothing but a conversation. And it goes back and forth and back and forth. And the same people that used to be on the commission that was against Gold Cross are now making their phone calls and they're writing their emails. And they're telling the new commissioners and other commissioners what's going to happen to you if you vote for Gold Cross. And that's fine. That's the way politics are. Glad I'm not doing it anymore. Thank you, Wayne. Augusta has got to come to the realization that we cannot afford to go into the ambulance business. We have got to put it out. Gold Cross has been doing a fabulous job, and I want y'all to remember during COVID how many vaccinations Gold Cross gave to these citizens. Think about that. Gold Cross has been an excellent partner to every citizen in Augusta, Georgia, whether you backed them, agreed with them or not. They've been a great partner. It's time to get off the pot and do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So obviously,
You still got to come back to me, sir.
wait a second, sir. Chair, we've obviously had an opportunity to address everybody in this commission, as well as some folks on the floor. It's almost time to vote on this. We keep going round and round. So there are some people in the queue. Please keep it brief as we need to move on. So Commissioner Williams, you're up, sir.
Yes, sir. Everybody's been talking today, and you tried to put me on ice, but I'm okay. When I think about the calls that I get, someone told me the other day that some lady died waiting on the ambulance at Kroger. I know that my sister-in-law had a stroke the other day, last week, and it took the ambulance over an hour to get there. I know of an incident where a lady came all the way from Savannah before the ambulance could get to her husband. I know of another incident where a man fell and hit his head, and his head was bleeding, and the ambulance never showed up, and his son put him in the car. I think that was Bob Hale, and they called me. I know of another incident where a lady's life was in the balance, and the ambulance never showed up. The Augusta Fire Department showed up and stabilized her, and they put her in the car and what have you. Those are the people that I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for those people who I can't say anything about the EMS service. I'm fighting for those people who want to be up here, who want to vote. why should we reward someone who's not doing the job? If they were doing what they needed to do, I would have no problem. But they're not. And you're asking for a really, really big raise that I don't think Augusta really has. You go in your rainy day fund, and we'll probably end up having to raise taxes next year. We're talking about if they pull away, we'll have service. I just want what's fair for Augusta. You're getting $607,000 right now. I'm gonna tell you, I'm connected with a medical facility myself, and we get payments for indigent care, but we get nowhere near $1 million. Now I know that someone sent some statistics and said maybe 10,000 people from Augusta didn't pay their bill last year. But Augusta has over 200,000 people in Augusta. So if 10,000 didn't pay their bill, you still got 190,000 out there. Also, during the pandemic, what have you, John Clark said they gave out a lot of shots. They did, and I do appreciate them so much. But they also received money from the government, I'm pretty sure, that they did to do that. So they're doing what they should do, they're just not doing it good enough. Now somebody said that maybe they're over at the hospital because they won't release them or what have you. Well, somebody told me the other day that Gold Cross only has 3 ambulances in the zone. I don't know if that's true, but it was told to me, so don't try to sue me. Isn't that right, Mr. Rich? Somebody told me that Gold Cross only has 3 ambulances in the zone. I don't know, which means they're not fulfilling what they should, if that's true. I don't know. But what I will say is that when I ran to do the business of the people. I ran to do what's right for the people. I ran to do what the people need and not what somebody just want to give a buddy. You got people and commissioners running over there, and they're meeting with Gold Cross, and they're bringing contracts back, and they know what's going on before anybody else knows what's going on. They got the statistics. You ask them for statistics, they won't give you the statistics or what have you. And then when you ask them, they got them in the pocket because they've already met with Gold Cross and the other folks out there or what have you. My thing is, Augusta is a great place to live. It's just a few things we got to get right. I don't call anybody's name, and I don't expect anybody to call my name. Keep my name out of your mouth. But you got some people been walking around trying to intimidate people. Just like the commissioner from the first said, somebody told him, and I know that to be fact, that he was going to be a one-term commissioner if he didn't vote for this. As far as I'm concerned, you can vote me out if this is going to be the telltale of the tape, because I ain't voting for it as long as it's not right. And this contract that Brandon Garrett brought forward, nobody authorized him to bring that contract forward. We authorized the administrator and the attorney to negotiate a contract. And that's the one we need to vote on. And I say we need to make a decision on that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner from the 5th. In the queue is Commissioner from the 8th, Commissioner Garrett.
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to the contract that was presented, we've already stated that this contract that I sent in was basically the cleaned up version from the negotiations back and forth between Gold Cross and the administration and legal. The only reason that I submitted the way that I did is because we never received an update from our administrator or legal because they claimed they did not have any direction from us. So with that being said, I'm going to put a motion on the floor, but I also want to respond and ask a question up here. Out of the 10 of us or 11 of us sitting up here, how many of us have actually read the various contracts that have been put in front of us? Raise your hand, please.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, before we can do that, we got to
Wait
determine.
a second.
We got to determine what contract we're voting on. He can't do a motion until we determine what contract that we're going to be voting on.
You're out of order, sir. You're
I'm going to be out of
interrupting.
order. I'm just telling you, we need to do that,
You're out of
Mayor.
order, sir.
We need to do that. We need to make sure we
out of
vote on the
order.
right
Commissioner from the
contract,
fifth.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you,
This
sir.
is a warning that you're out of order.
You're not
Point of
going to
order.
overtalk me. I'm just telling you, we need to determine which contract that we're going to vote on.
Legal, point of order.
You can legal
You're
all
out of
you
order,
want.
sir.
Just like Marion Williams said, you can't put me out.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
Commissioner from the 8th, are you done?
No, I'm not done. Thank you, Mayor, and I apologize to the public that is watching this. We're trying to present ourselves as a professional way, but anyway, so here's the motion that I want us all to hear and listen closely. The motion is to approve the contract with Gold Cross EMS as presented by the administrator with the following: 8 ambulances, 24 hours a day, housed in the fire stations. 1 QRV, 24 hours a day. 2 additional QRV during peak hours as stated in the contract. $1.95 million inducement paid immediately. A $1.75 million subsidy paid annually. 120-day grace period as agreed to in the contract. Annual financial disclosure as well as weekly updates as well. No performance bond. Augusta may terminate this contract if they are not awarded the Richmond County zone, as Gold Cross has agreed to relinquish and help Augusta get.
Point of order.
And a 3-year contract with a 3-year renewal. That is my motion.
Point of order.
Madam Administrator.
Second.
Madam Administrator.
Point of order.
Madam.
Who's second? Was that you, Mr. Franner?
All right. Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Before we proceed, did you have time to record that?
Yes. Commissioner Garrett submitted a hard copy, which I will put on the screen.
Please.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Hold tight, please.
Okay. I see.
Mr. Mayor, I have a substitute
Wait
motion.
a second. Just get it up on the screen.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. So we have it up on the screen. Madam Clerk has it recorded.
Okay.
The chair is going to recognize. The chair is going to recognize the commissioner from the first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These figures, oh, I thought you just recognized me.
Hold tight, sir.
I'll wait. Yes, sir. This is government. This is democracy.
All right. The chair is going to recognize the commissioner from the fifth on the point of order, but you have to be brief.
What is brief? A minute? 3?
30 seconds.
What's the 1.95 inducement for the zone?
I will ask the commissioner from the 8th to answer that question. Unfortunately, Commissioner from the 5th, that is not a point of order topic.
Okay, but the inducement is for them giving us the zone, correct? But that's illegal. So that needs to be taken off the board. 1.95, they're trying to give them 1.95 for them giving up the zone. That's illegal.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Attorney Brown?
Attorney Brown, that's illegal.
I have expressed to doing staff meetings with some of commissioners and the mayor in preparation of this meeting. I've expressed my concern about Augusta paying an inducement to Gold Cross to give up the zone. The basis for my legal concern is that, one, it would be inducing a company who is in contract with the state. We will be using local funds as a political subdivision of Georgia to induce someone to break or end a contract with the state. Secondly, and even more importantly, we would this inducement appears to be a violation of the gratuity clause of the Constitution of the State of Georgia. There's no demonstrated value in that gold.
May I respond?
Stand down.
In that Gold Cross cannot give Augusta the zone. I fail to see the value that Augusta would get from Gold Cross releasing the zone.
Thank you, Attorney Brown. Chair recognizes, I want to ask Stephen Vincent to come up and address the question.
You know, Mr. Mayor, I'm so sick and tired of y'all texting back and forth. I'm so sick and tired of y'all texting back and forth.
Stand down,
this,
sir.
right?
Stand down.
I can stand down.
Stand down.
I'm so sick
Out
and
of
tired
order.
of y'all
Out of
texting
order.
back and forth to bring somebody up.
Who's texting?
He had his phone in his hand back there. I'm watching him.
Out of order, sir.
Him to come up.
Out of order.
I
You
don't
can say hey to my wife, who I was texting. Thank you.
I don't care if you text.
Out of order. Commissioner from the 5th.
So I want to make two statements. One, Commissioner Williams, you've been in my office, and I've seen you, shown you the stats.
When I was a first year, whatever, Butch Gallup brought me to your office. So I'm so far away from that now. It's my fourth
but
year.
to say you've never seen stats or statistics, I've actually shown you EOBs from Medicaid with
never.
Okay,
Sir.
But anyway,
Mr. Vincent, I just need you to answer the question.
Yes,
What is the purpose of the inducement?
The inducement is to increase our staffing. You may have seen what Aiken County EMS did yesterday. They are so short-staffed that they put out that they're switching to a 24/72 schedule. That's going to be millions of dollars to be able to accommodate that, to increase their staffing. We're looking at doing the same exact thing, is to increase our staffing, buy more equipment, buy more vehicles, to put more ambulances, put more quick response vehicles on the road so we can decrease the response times that you're up here discussing right now. That is what the inducement's for. The inducement is to increase staffing. It is not to give up the zone. It is not any type of gratuitous for past performance or anything like that. It is to increase our staffing, purchase equipment, and overall improve the quality of service.
Thank you, sir. Chair recognizes legal counsel.
If Gold Cross is saying that, or if the commission is saying that the inducement is for a specific thing, it is yet to be stated by the commission what the inducement is for. It's simply saying an inducement. In the prior meeting, it was specifically stated by certain commissions to induce them to give up the zone. That is my legal concern. However, if the inducement is for something other than that, staff need an opportunity to be able to place that in writing in the contract so that the commission will have some way to do what the commission says it wants to do, and that's to have accountability. If the inducement is given without a specific promise or commitment from Gold Cross, the inducement will remain a gratuity. It has to be designated what the inducement is for.
Chair recognizes the clerk of the commission.
Sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry. All right.
Mr. Mayor. Also,
one second, Commissioner from the
Also, they took out the performance bond. The performance bond is for doing your job and being
Commissioner
on
from
time.
the 5th. Please stand down, sir, while we go. I'll come back to you. Just give me a second. Next in the queue is Commissioner from the 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And even with these terms on the screen, like again, we're going back to the same conversation about these figures, these questions, these recommendations. And so I think one good medium, and this is a form of a substitute motion, that we allow staff to go back into negotiations with Gold Cross. Obviously, there are some mediums that Gold Cross would be willing to go with. There are some areas that we would be willing to go with. And I believe that having us get to a point of having a real conversation with commissioners not meddling. We have a lot of conversations about too much commission meddling. We've had that conversation, Mr. Mayor. And so I think to get the commission out of the way, if that's a such thing, but to get the commission out of the way, we need to go into negotiations, have our staff go back into negotiations with Gold Cross to bring us a contract that both sides would be ready to support. And that's a form of a substitute motion.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
All right, so I have a substitute motion and a second. Before we move forward, there's a commissioner that has not been recognized, and that's the commissioner from the 2nd, Commissioner Pulliam.
I can hold my, thank you for recognizing me, Mayor Johnson. I can hold my question until I know whether or not this second motion passes, because it's, the substitute motion passes because it's in reference to that.
All right. Madam Clerk, we have a substitute motion and a second.
Mayor, I need to add the statement as recommended by the attorney to the original motion.
Madam Clerk, I think their order is we need to do the substitute motion first before we can add that item to the original motion. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to vote on the substitute first, and he wants to amend the original motion to include the attorney's comments regarding the position of inducement.
Yes, I was wanting to state what the inducement was for. It's not a gratuity. It's for the purchase of vehicles, labor, and training and equipment.
So,
let's do the substitute motion first, and then we'll go back and address this. So we have a motion.
I need clarity on the substitute. Does the substitute motion mean they're going to go meet right now and we're going to come back in 30 minutes?
Nah.
Commissioner,
nah.
that's unrealistic.
That's unrealistic.
Okay, all right.
You guys
And that's because we're at the end.
All right, Commissioner, from the first, I'm going to ask you a question. Can we put a time limit on your substitute motion as to when we could get back to this body?
I want to defer that to the staff, Mr. Mayor, because I do believe that they would know when they could meet. We have a meeting on the table with the school board. We have a meeting on the table with a few others. So I want to make sure that they have ample time to go to the table with Gold Cross to have a conversation and bring something back to this body. So I would defer that to staff, how long it would take for negotiations to conclude.
All right. So, Madam Clerk, let's move forward.
And here's the thing. This is another, again, Mr. Mayor, and to my colleagues, we're saying that we want to have a conversation. We're saying we want to finish this. We want to get it done. We want to put an end to it. Let our staff do their job.
Exactly.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Exactly.
Madam Clerk, we have a motion and we have a second, and we're ready to vote.
Okay. We're voting?
Substitute motion.
Substitute motion.
Substitute motion.
Can you reread the motion just to make for clarity?
Substitute motion is to allow staff to enter into negotiation with Gold Cross and bring back an acceptable agreement to the commission from both parties. I'm kind of piecemeal.
Let's vote.
Y'all need to vote this up.
That motion is 5-5 with Mr. Johnson voting yes, Ms. Pulliam, Mr. Bobby Williams, Mr. Tony Lewis, and Ms. Francine Scott. Voting no, Ms. McKnight, Mr. Mason, Mr. Franham, Mr. Garrett, and Mr. Guilfoyle.
Madam Clerk, does that mean I get the opportunity to vote?
Yes, sir.
I vote no.
Okay.
We need to move
That
forward.
motion fails with the mayor voting no.
All right. So the subject motion has failed. Commissioner from the 8th, you mentioned the idea of adding something to the original motion.
Yes, and
Just
for
one
the
second after
inducement,
the-
we need to add that the inducement is for equipment, vehicles, and training, as stated by Gold Cross.
Well, since he's talking, Mr. Mayor, I was told.
Wait,
I was told by he wasn't recognized.
Give me a second, sir. Madam Clerk, you have the opportunity. You good?
Yes, sir. I have.
All right. Chair recognizes the commissioner from the 5th.
Thank you, sir. One, I was told yesterday by, you know what, we met with 2 or 3 people yesterday, and then we were told yesterday that the inducement was for the zone. That's one. 2, he took out the performance bond that is in the administrator's contract. So the performance bond, that means that they can be late or whatever, they won't be taxed. Now, the third thing is that you got in here a 120-day ramp up. Why do they need 120 days to ramp up when they've been doing this for years? They don't need 120 days to ramp up. That's 3. And 4, the man asked for a meeting so we could talk this out. A lot of us don't even know what's in the administrator's contract, and a lot of us definitely don't know what's in the contract that they gave us the other day, an hour or so before the meeting. So you really need to know what's in the contracts before you vote. That's all Mr. Johnson is saying. We need to know what's in the contract, not something you jam down our throats, and that's what you're trying to do today. Thank you.
Call for the question, Mr. Mayor.
You call for the
Call
question.
for the question, Mr. Mayor.
Call for the question. You still got people in the queue, sir. You still got people in the queue.
I want to recognize the commissioner from the 2nd because she's been our quiet angel down there. I want to give her an opportunity to speak, please.
And you got the commissioner from the 9th in the queue.
All right, Commissioner from the 2nd, you have to stand down. So there's been a call for the question, which means we're prepared to vote on the original motion.
Not quite, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Mason called for the question, and that there's disagreement of that. The commission, to call for the question mean to a request to end the discussion. The commission has to vote whether to end the discussion. If 6 members vote to end the discussion is ended. If 6 members do not vote to end the discussion may continue.
Madam Clerk, we're ready to vote.
This is not what happened last week.
We're voting
I'll call for the question.
on the call for the question. Okay.
It'll be easier just to recognize the people, sir.
Well,
Madam Clerk, let's vote for the call. Yes.
Okay, the parliamentarian has issued a clarification, so we're voting on the call for the question.
Yes. People have already started voting. Holding vote. Holding the end discussion.
That motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
That's with Ms. McKnight voting yes, Mr. Mason, Mr. Franham, Mr. Garrett, Ms. Scott, and Mr. Guilfoyle.
All right, Madam Clerk, let's vote. And I will remind the audience, and I remind my colleagues on the commission that this is the people's house and we're going to be respectful regardless of how the vote goes, okay? This is the Lee N. Beard Commission Chambers, and we're going to be respectful. So thank you. Madam Clerk,
Yes.
can you read the motion, please?
The motion is to approve the contract with Gold Cross EMS presented by the administrator with the following: 8 ambulances, 24 hours a day hosting fire stations, 1 QRV, 24-hour a day, 2 additional QRVs during peak hours, 1.95 million inducement for equipment, vehicles, and training immediately, 1.75 subsidy, 120-day grace period, ramped up period, and annual financial disclosures, no performance bond. Augusta may terminate contract if they're not awarded Richmond County zone, a 3-year contract with a 3-year renewal.
Clerk Bonner, we're ready to vote.
That motion fails 5-4-1. With Ms. McKnight voting yes, Mr. Mason, Mr. Franum, Mr. Garrett, and Mr. Guilfoyle. Voting no, Mr. Johnson, Ms. Pulliam, Mr. Lewis, and Ms. Scott. Abstaining, Mr. Bobby Williams.
I'd like to call for a vote of reconsideration, and let's try to make a firm decision up here today and not leave it this way. You abstained, so that's not trying.
I agree.
Listen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. I know this isn't always pretty, but it's our government at work, and I really appreciate your time. And have a great day. And this meeting is adjourned.